There are families that have maintained financial control of the world for thousands of years, multiplying fortunes from generation to generation. And while most people struggle just to pay the monthly bills, these families keep a secret that rabbis refuse to teach in public. Today, I am going to leak one of those secrets. I will show you how the ancients use a single food item that literally costs 10 cents, something you probably have in your fridge right now, not as a superstition, but as a brutal mental technology to force wealth to multiply. We are going to dissect the hidden science behind a simple carrot. If you think this is magic or a joke, this channel is not for you. You can leave. But if you want the pragmatic code of how human intention forces money to appear, pay close attention. Pay close attention to what I am going to tell you right now. If you clicked on this video thinking I am going to teach you to put a carrot in your wallet to attract money, know that it is much, much more than that. You are trapped in the exact same level of awareness as 99% of the people who still have empty bank accounts. The modern internet is infested with shallow gurus teaching the law of attraction. They tell you to close your eyes, smile, think positive, and wait for the universe to, in some magical and effortless way, drop $1 million in your lap. This is what we call cheap superstition. It is the opium of those who are too lazy to do the hard work. It is the perfect excuse for weak minds who want to outsource the responsibility for their own success to stars, astral alignments, or invisible cosmic vibrations. If you are ready to abandon the shallow lies and understand the real code of money, go to the comments right now and type exactly this phrase: "The illusion is over." Type that right now to seal your commitment, and let's continue. The culture responsible for the largest concentration of generational wealth on the planet does not operate with stage mysticism. We operate with relentless behavioral engineering. We operate with mathematics, with a cold reading of human nature, and with a mental discipline tested over thousands of years. In pragmatic traditional Judaism, deep wisdom simply does not allow for futile, magical thinking. When we look at an ancient ritual, what the modern Western mind sees is merely a make-believe. But the ancients did not create a religion of folk spells. They created a brutally sophisticated mental technology, specifically designed to hack and master human attention. Understand an absolute rule: your brain is a machine focused on short-term survival. At every moment, your conscious mind is bombarded by real fears, planted anxieties, and bills to pay at the end of the month. When you merely try to wish to be rich, your rational mind tries to focus on abundance, but your subconscious is focused on lack. Your brain knows it is a delusion because material proof is missing, and this is exactly where the useless illusion of superstition dies, and the true technology of the symbol begins to work. The ancient sages who compiled the Talmud understood a principle of neuroscience millennia before laboratories existed. They knew that to program the mind to aggressively seek opportunities, telling it to think positively is not enough. Thought evaporates. An unquestionable material anchor is needed, something physical, tangible, that breaks the ordinary pattern of reality and forces the nervous system to register an intention with absolute weight. This is where the anomaly comes in. The most common food possible, the carrot. Reason with me. Why don't these families use a gold bar or a diamond to anchor the intention of wealth? Why choose a 10-cent food that grows underground, dirty, that needs to be pulled out and chopped by you? Because the hidden psychological lesson is clear. True wealth building does not depend on the capital you already have. It depends on how you extract, cultivate, and multiply resources from absolute zero. To master your material reality, you need unbreakable psychological triggers. The symbol of the carrot is a severe psychological contract you sign with yourself. It marks the exact moment your invisible intention gains a physical body in the real world. The carrot by itself does not attract any money. If you eat 10 tons of carrots every day, you will remain poor. The absolute genius lies in the mechanism of mental installation. By anchoring a financial goal in an act as undeniable as the action of eating, you dissolve the resistance of your limiting mind. You are biologically materializing a command of growth for your entire nervous system. Right now, the big question in your head must be, but why exactly this food? What exists in the hidden architecture of a simple carrot that made it the tool to activate wealth? The answer will destroy any esoteric guess. It is not just the visual, it is an ancient linguistic code. Now that you understand that the mind needs a physical object to materialize an invisible intention, we need to move forward to the second pillar. Pay attention, because this is where the absolute majority of people fail miserably. Having a symbol is not enough. A material symbol without an absolutely clear verbal direction is just dead weight. Your brain needs a command. And I am not talking about a vague wish thrown to the wind. I am talking about a direct and relentless programming code. In the tradition from which we are extracting this wealth technology, there is a millennia-old understanding that modern neuroscience has only recently begun to map. Language does not merely describe your material reality. It actively constructs it. The words you articulate do not serve only for your external communication with other people. They are the primary operating system of your own subconscious. The sages who built the foundation of pragmatic Western thought did not choose words by chance. They were, above all, architects of language. They knew that a specific sound, repeated with the correct intention, functions as a targeting algorithm for your entire nervous system. So we return to our initial anomaly, the carrot. Why was the carrot chosen from among thousands of other foods to be the visual core of the financial prosperity ritual? The answer is not in the botany of the vegetable, it is not in the sweet taste, and much less in the color. The answer is strategically hidden in a phonetic and linguistic game of extreme genius. In the Yiddish language, the language spoken by the Eastern European Jews, who consolidated and transmitted many of these practices over the centuries, the word for carrot is pronounced mern. Keep this word very well in your brain right now. Mern. If you open a common dictionary, the primary translation will simply be the root vegetable we all know. But Yiddish is a language of deep layers, of reading between the lines, and the phonetic verb mern within this same linguistic structure has a second exact, unquestionable, and powerful meaning. It means, literally, to multiply or to increase. Stop for a second and absorb the weight of this intellectual engineering. When the individual sits at the table, isolates the noise of the outside world, and focuses on this specific food, they are not just consuming daily calories. They are activating a designed language trigger. They are, literally, holding in their own hands the concept of multiplying. The physical action of eating, merges with the immediate verbal meaning of expansion. It is as if they were typing a line of code directly into their own mind that says, "Install the multiplication protocol now." Do you understand the brutal difference between this and fifth-rate modern self-help? The average man wakes up in the morning, looks in the mirror, tries to force a smile, and says repeatedly, "I am rich, I will attract money." His brain immediately rejects the phrase because the reality around him, the house and the bank account, scream the exact opposite. There is an absurd cognitive dissonance. The language enters into a fatal clash with physical reality. But the MERN system completely bypasses this defense. You are not asserting a lie. You are taking an object whose very historical name carries the concept of continuous growth and associating it with a real, vital, and undeniable action, which is your eating. The rational brain cannot reject this. Your reticular activating system, which is the network of neurons responsible for filtering what is important and what is garbage in your daily life, receives a clean message. Our only focus now is to multiply. The middle class lives based on silent hope. The families that control and maintain generational wealth live on deliberate intention and the surgical precision of language. When they teach the code of the MERN, they are installing a core belief of growth even before doubt can exist in the individual's mind. The intention is not just, "May money fall into my account tomorrow." That is the thought of the amateur looking for shortcuts. The true intention is to force the mind to seek the multiplication of merits, the aggressive expansion of opportunities, and the exponential increase in the capacity to generate and retain wealth. This is neuro-linguistic programming, created many centuries before modern psychology books hit the shelves. It is the deliberate use of language to force your cognitive focus. However, language, even when anchored in a perfect phonetic code, still needs extreme visual confirmation to shield the mind against financial panic. And this is exactly what the aesthetic architecture of the Foods Cut delivers on a silver platter in Phase 3. We have just installed the linguistic code in the mind. The exact command to multiply was successfully given. But there is a critical flaw in the human brain that can sabotage this whole process if we are not extremely cold and careful. Your rational mind, however brilliant and logical you think it is absurdly skeptical regarding what it cannot see with its own eyes. You can repeat the right word 1,000 times in a row, but if your visual field does not confirm the order, your subconscious will treat your command as a passing delusion. That is exactly why the physical symbol cannot have a random shape. It needs to have an impeccable visual architecture to deceive the defenses of your limiting mind. And this is where the millennial preparation of this simple carrot comes in as a true masterclass in advanced cognitive psychology. In the pragmatic and wealthy tradition of the great families, you do not take a whole dirty root, bite into it, and wait for your bank account to triple in size. That would be grotesque, amateurish, and useless. The preparation of the food requires specific geometric engineering. The carrot is sliced into exact, thin, and precise rounds. When you look at a plate full of these rounds, especially after they are cooked, when they take on a warm, bright orange tone, what you see is no longer a simple vegetable that was pulled from the damp earth. What your primitive brain sees, instantly and undeniably, is a plate overflowing with solid gold coins. Do not make the mistake of thinking this is just an aesthetic whim or an unimportant culinary detail. This is a visual anchor of extremely high emotional voltage. Cutting-edge neuroscience has already exhaustively proven to us that the human visual cortex processes images thousands of times faster than it processes any written or spoken word. Even before you have the chance to articulate the verbal command to multiply, your own eyes have already sent the message of wealth and abundance directly and without filters to your central nervous system. The coin shape is the universal, historical, and unquestionable symbol of material wealth in human civilization. When the ancient strategists decided they would cut this food into this exact shape, they were not playing house. They were, in fact, creating a lethal psychological shortcut to bypass financial anxiety and silence the panic of scarcity. Stop and analyze the routine of the common man. He spends the whole day, 18 hours a day, looking at cell phone screens that show overdue bills, negative balances, crisis news, and collection notifications. The visual environment of this man is violently programmed to emit the signal of emergency and scarcity all the time. How do you expect this guy's mind to produce millionaire ideas if the scenery around him constantly screams that he is broke? Chronic stress destroys creativity and assassinates long-term vision. The only way to break this cycle of despair is by forcefully injecting a new image, an image of tactile abundance, directly into his primary field of vision. Upon sitting before these symbolic coins at the table, an immediate pattern break occurs. The cognitive dissonance of poverty is suspended. The brain looks at the plate and registers a new fact. There is abundance here. The vibrant color, the perfect circular shape, and the stacked quantity form the exact aesthetics of wealth that your mind needed to calm down. And look at the grandeur of this. You did not need to rob a safe or buy real gold bars to cause this immediate neurological impact. You used a banal and accessible material to hack your own brain's perception of reality. Many ignorant people laugh at this process. They call it cheap mysticism because they are incapable of understanding the absolute power of semiotics in decision-making. Megacorporations spend billions of dollars every year on design exactly because they know that shapes and colors control human behavior. What the sages did was master this same science of visual persuasion for their own use. We now have the physical object, we have the linguistic command, and we have the perfect visual architecture. The hardware and the software are ready. But the system only comes to life when we activate the ignition. And this ignition is governed by a strict equation that I call the relentless triad of materialization. We have now reached the absolute core of this mental technology. Pay close attention, because understanding the previous 3 steps is absolutely useless if you do not know how to start the engine. We already have the physical object. We have already understood the linguistic command hidden in the word. We have already assembled the visual architecture to hack the brain. But a luxury car with a full tank and inflated tires does not move without the ignition. In the ancestral pragmatism of the great families, this ignition is given a name. It is a central principle that I call the relentless triad of materialization, and it is composed of 3 non-negotiable elements: thought, word, and physical action. If you remove just one of these 3 pillars, your intention of wealth crumbles and goes back to being just a passing delusion in your head. Let's dissect how the average person operates. The average man has a thought that he needs to earn more money. He even articulates some words, complaining about his own life or saying he will try something new on Monday. But he does not tie this thought and this word to any physical action of immediate impact. The result is total dispersion. His brain registers no change of state. The routine swallows him up, and the promise dies before lunch. The millennial system that uses the carrot solves this human software flaw with a silent aggressiveness. Before bringing the food to their mouth, tradition requires an intentional pause. The individual does not attack the plate like a starving animal. They master their own basic instinct of hunger to insert a conscious command. Traditionally, a short declaration called Yehi Ratzon is pronounced, which can be roughly translated as, "May it be thy will." But do not look at this with the eyes of a mystic. Look at this with the eyes of a strategist. What is happening there is the installation of a protocol of extreme focus. In this brief window of time, the individual aligns the intention of asking for the absurd increase of their own merits, the multiplication of clear opportunities for material growth, and the immediate cancellation of negative forces or stupid decisions that could destroy their wealth. Analyze the mechanical genius of this triad. The first pillar is thought. Thought is raw mental focus. It is the target being painted on the wall. But thought alone, as we have already seen, is like smoke. It dissipates at the first moment of stress in your day. Then comes the second pillar, the word. The spoken word is the direction of the intention. When you verbalize the decree of multiplication, you force your vocal cords to vibrate and your own ears to hear your command. You are taking the goal out of the invisible world of the mind and throwing it into the physical world of sound. You are transforming an abstract idea into a verbal contract. But the verbal contract still needs an authenticated signature to carry legal weight before your own neurology. And that is where the third pillar comes in, the coup de grace against self-sabotage, physical action. The act of eating the carrot, which already carries the code of growth and the visual aesthetics of wealth, serves as the definitive seal of this psychological operation. Eating is not a passive act. Eating is putting something inside your own body. It is absorbing matter. It is transforming something external into vital energy for your own cells. When you overlay the thought of expansion with the verbal declaration and execute the action of feeding yourself, your brain has no other alternative. You are no longer asking the universe for money. You are literally forcing your nervous system to accept the command that the multiplication has already begun. You force your subconscious mind to operate like a military radar, mapping opportunities. This is not magic. This is aligning all your biology, your language, and your attention into a single laser beam focused on prosperity. The amateur prays and waits for the money to fall. The pragmatic master decrees the intention, seals it with an irrefutable physical action, and forces his own mind to execute the plan. However, understanding this machinery raises an imminent danger, the trap into which modern gurus try to push you. If this works so well, why not do it every day of your life? The answer to this question is the difference between poison and medicine, and it lies in our fifth pillar. At this exact point of our dissection, anyone with a minimum of intelligence and pragmatism would be asking a very obvious question. If the surgical union between the linguistic command, the visual symbol, and physical action builds such an absurdly powerful mental hacking technology, why don't we do it every day? Why not eat sliced carrots in the shape of coins at every meal 3 times a day and become a billionaire in a month? It is exactly in this trap that 99% of modern self-help and spirituality content creators demonstrate that they understand absolutely nothing about how human nature operates. They will try to convince you that extreme frequency is the secret to all success. They will tell you to write your financial goals 30 times a day on paper. They will tell you that if you do not vibrate in the tune of abundance 24 hours a day uninterruptedly, the universe will punish you with misery. Pay close attention to what I am going to reveal to you right now. This is not just a dangerous lie. This is a certificate of neurological ignorance. The insistence on the daily repetition of prosperity rituals is the exact formula to destroy your ability to build real wealth. Understand once and for all how your brain really works. The human nervous system has a primitive survival mechanism called habituation. It was designed by evolution to save your mental energy. Everything that you do repeatedly, ceaselessly, leads your mind to turn off the state of alert, remove all the emotional charge from that action, and transfer the behavior directly to your autopilot. Think about the act of tying your shoes or driving your car to work every day. You do not think deeply about the mechanics of turning the steering wheel. You simply execute it while your head is worried about paying the bills. If you try to transform this carrot symbol technology into a banal daily routine, you will assassinate the effectiveness of the command. In less than 2 weeks, your brain will classify this action as something irrelevant. The reality shock will disappear completely. The mental command of multiplication will lose all its weight, and that shiny slice, which before was a visual anchor of wealth, will go back to being just a tasteless salad on your lunch plate. The banalization is the silent killer of any advanced psychological protocol. The ancient architects of this wisdom knew this millennia before neuroscience existed. And that is strictly why they established a relentless rule, ritualistic scarcity. In the tradition of the most prosperous families, this intention protocol tied to the carrot and the absolute command of expansion is not a casual event on just any Tuesday. It is purposely triggered at a highly specific moment loaded with immense gravity, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. It is a narrow time window that opens for only 1 or 2 days in the entire year. And this brutal time restriction is not a mere cultural detail to be ignored. It is the master key that makes the system work. When you restrict such a powerful mental trigger to a single annual event, you inject the factor of urgency, respect, and absolute reverence into your brain. You create an unforgettable shock of consciousness. When you stop everything you are doing, isolate yourself from modern distractions on a highly demarcated day on the calendar, and execute the relentless triad with sniper precision, your mind has no way of throwing the action onto autopilot. Your neurons go into a state of shock. The impact of installing the multiplication mental program in this state of maximum alert is so profound, so visceral, that the directive begins to echo aggressively in your subconscious for the next 365 days. You do not need to keep repeating this every morning like an insecure parrot in front of the mirror. This leads us to the definitive distinction between the broke amateur and the elite strategist. The amateur needs to repeat wealth rituals every day because, deep in his soul, he doubts himself. He prays daily for money because he breathes the atmosphere of despair. And despair, pay attention to this, is the exact emotion that expels capital from your life. The pragmatic elite, on the other hand, sits at the table only once a year, installs the command with unshakable focus, gets up, and spends the other 364 days on the battlefield executing the hard work. They trust that the brain itself has already been properly programmed to track profit. Blind repetition weakens your intention. Surgical punctuality makes it immortal. The big question that remains is, how can you, who are watching me right now, extract the raw matrix of this ancient engineering and apply this cognitive armor to your own reality, starting today? That is exactly our final step. We have reached the end of our dissection. You have already understood that there is no magic. You understood the hidden code of language, the architecture of the visual symbol, the irrevocable physical action, and the brutal rule of scarcity that shields your mind. But passive knowledge, no matter how profound, is just useless entertainment if you do not know how to install this technology into your own hardware. The big mistake you can make right now is trying to imitate the tradition in a superficial and disrespectful way. You do not need to pretend to be what you are not. You do not need to appropriate millennial rituals that do not belong to your primary culture to make the system work. What you're going to do, starting today, is extract the raw psychological matrix of this ancient machinery and build your own ritual of relentless intention. Your goal is not religion. Your goal is the hacking of your own nervous system to force the multiplication of wealth. To install this pragmatic mechanism in your modern life, you're going to follow 4 non-negotiable steps. Step number 1 is the choice of the physical anchor. You need to select an object of consumption, preferably a specific food or drink, that will be the host of your intention. Do not choose something you eat every day. Do not choose the bread and butter from your everyday breakfast. It has to be something unusual, something that requires a preparation effort. It can be a specific cut of meat that you prepare yourself. It can be a rare coffee bean that you manually grind, or, if you prefer to keep the essence of today's lesson, a food cut with geometric precision. The important thing is that the visual texture breaks your daily pattern. Your brain needs to look at this item and know instantly that this is not a normal day. Step number 2 is the definition of the linguistic command. Forget the long, emotional, and tearful phrases of self-help. Your brain ignores complex texts when it is under pressure. You need a single command word, or at most a short phrase that works as an execution trigger. Just as the ancients used the concept of multiplying, you must choose your decree. It can be expansion. It can be dominion. It can be multiplication. This word will be your directive. It is not a request you make to the universe. It is a military order you are giving to your own subconscious mind. Step number 3 is the isolation of the environment. On the day of execution, you will eliminate the noise. No cell phone on the table, no television on with crisis news, no side conversations about everyday problems. The focus must be absolute. Silence is the space where intention gains weight. When you sit before your physical anchor, You will apply the triad of materialization. You will focus your mind on your financial target for the coming months. You will verbalize your command of expansion clearly so that your own ears hear the order, and in the exact same second, you will consume the food, sealing the directive through the biological action of feeding yourself. Step number 4, and the most neglected of all, is the frequency block. As I have already proven in the previous topic, blind repetition destroys the psychological impact. You are not going to do this tomorrow, nor the day after tomorrow. You are going to choose strategic and restricted dates on your calendar. It can be the first day of a new financial quarter. It can be the turn of your birthday. It can be twice a year, and only that. By restricting this act of power to rare moments, you force your brain to treat this mental programming with reverence and a sense of acute urgency. The families that control generational wealth in the world are not afraid to use psychological tools to shape their own reality. They do not leave their financial future in the hands of chance, and much less in the hands of the state. They program their own minds to see money where most people only see chaos. The system has been revealed. As an acknowledgement, click the bell and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing and helps me a lot. The mechanism is in your hands. If you are going to continue outsourcing your financial responsibility to cheap superstitions, the choice is yours. But if you decide to apply this matrix with the coldness of a strategist, your brain will never again be an obstacle to your wealth. It will be the most lethal weapon in your arsenal. The construction of true generational wealth does not tolerate amateur minds. If you have the stomach to access this matrix of relentless knowledge, subscribe to this channel right now. And to sign your biological contract with the system we just installed in your mind, go down to the comments and type the following phrase: "The multiplication has begun." That is your definitive decree. The execution is up to you.